Hello, in this video, I want to explain the concept of RESTful APIs. So first of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Leon Fang. I'm a fourth-year computer science major at UCSB. The reason why I want to be a ULA for CS156 is because I'm personally very interested in full-stack software engineering and agile methodologies. I've taken CS156, and I really love this class. And I also like to help students to troubleshoot and learn new concepts while I was in this class. So I think I will be a good candidate for this class. I'm also have done several software engineering internship in the industry, so I'm very comfortable with all the technologies that are involved. So in this video, I want to explain what RESTful API is, right? So first, I want to get started with what exactly is an API. API stands for Application Programming Interface. You can think of it as a set of rules and protocols your program must follow to communicate with different software system, right? These software systems can be written in completely different languages, and they don't matter. Then what is REST? So REST stands for the representational state transfer. Generally, when we talk about RESTful APIs, we really mean like RESTful web APIs. So REST is really not a specification like HTTP, but rather a set of principles and rules people follow to design how the communications between web services. And then one of its biggest characteristics is stateless, right? Like there's, what the server does not have to remember all the previous requests and responses it has sent out. So let's break down, RESTful API a bit more. So here is a RESTful API URI. So usually an URI starts with a RESTful, verb. So here it defines it as a get, right? It's a HTTP method, which is used to get data from the web server. And HTTPs, this is just a protocol that we use to communicate with the client, with the server. And Pokey API.co. This is a domain which we specify, right? Where can we get our data from, right? In this case, the web server that we're talking to has this name, API, a Pokey API.co. And then we have the rest of them can be just at the path, which are usually artificially designed by the development team. It can be arbitrary, but usually there's some certain standards, right? You want your endpoint to be short, simple, but also expressive. So in this case, a good example can be the example here. We do /Pokemon/Pikachu. So in this case, we want to go to this web server, pokeapi.co, and we want to get a Pokemon with the name of Pikachu. So we talked about get method in the previous slides, right? But the CRUD operations are really the essence of RESTful API, right? So other than get, which we talked about before, is used to read data from the database. We can also post, new data to the database by using like optional request body or query parameters to send data to the backend. So our backend, the web server, can process it and then create a new entry in the database. We can also update existing entries using put, and we can also delete existing entries or multiple entries using a delete operation, right? It destroy certain resources from the database. So as we can see, the RESTful API requests have to follow very specific format, but also the server also have certain formats as well. In this case, they're very well defined. So if the server response has status code in 200s, which means your request is successful. If it is in 400s, that means you messed up, right? There's some client errors. For example, 404 means you're looking for some resources, but they don't actually exist in the database. For example, like a Pokemon that doesn't exist, right? Then in this case, the web server cannot just made up values and give it back to you. If it's 500, which means the server is broken, there's some server errors, then that server does not know how to handle. So I like to talk about API, in this really bigger picture, right? Like the example I like to use is a restaurant example. So in this case, the users are basically the customers that want to order food. And then the waiters and the waitresses in this case are the client, the API, the web application. So in this case, the web application or the waiters and waitresses will take orders from the users and then it will write it down in a very specified manner, right? And then it will pass this order to the web server, in this case, the cooks, right? The cooks read the orders that are written in a specific order, and then they know, okay, like what the users are looking for. Then they will go to the inventory to get the ingredients, in this case, our data. So, and then they will get the data or get the ingredients from the inventory. They will cook up the meal. They will pass the food to the web application, and then in this case, the waiters and waitress will then serve the food up front. So in this case, this diagram really simple diagram really illustrate the overall workflow of a full stack web application, and then how RESTful API is a very essential part of the modern web services. Thank you so much for listening.